Okay. Well, it's time to talk about my prognostication of where the Republican race is going to go. And in February, I predict Romney's going to do pretty good. There's 7 prominent primaries or caucuses, and 5 of them from 2008, Romney won Nevada, Colorado, Maine, Minnesota, and see, I said Nevada. So, and the only 2 that he didn't win was Arizona and Missouri. He came close in Arizona, actually, but remember, Arizona was McCain's home state, and Arizona also has a decent-sized Mormon population. So they represent about 10% of the GOP vote there, so that's going to have influence on his vote. So my point is this. So far, we've had 4 elections: the Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida. All 4 of them, all 4 of those elections, Mitt Romney has improved upon his standing from 2008. Iowa, he was 10% down. In 2008, 2012, he's 100 votes away from winning the whole thing. New Hampshire, he loses. This time he wins big. South Carolina, yeah, he lost in 2012, but in 2008, he wasn't even in 2nd place. He was 4th place. This time, 2012, he gets 2nd place. Florida, he loses by 5 points to McCain in 2008. In 2012, as we know, he wins big by double digits. And so if you look, next 2 are Nevada, Maine. He won those. Maine may actually go to Ron Paul because he's been focusing on that state hardcore, and they like the, hit the live free or die libertarian type of thing. So I think Ron Paul can make an impact in Maine. And then you have Minnesota, Colorado, I think Missouri. And as I said, Minnesota, Colorado, boom. So, and there's also going to be a debate in February. It's going to be in Arizona. And so he's going to have most of the support in Arizona. So Gingrich isn't going to be able to have, the South Carolina effect of people going, yeah, standing up. No. This is where his make or break day is. The most important day probably in Gingrich's campaign. And I don't know where it's going to go. I have no clue, but I do know it's an important date. March 1st. Why is March 1st so important, you say? March 1st is where the GOP debate is in his home state. And if you think South Carolina was favorable to Gingrich, what do you think his home state's going to be like in the debates? And so I'm not too sure how Romney's going to deal with that. Is he going to... I predict there might be some conflict. Romney may, by then, if he does really well, say, you know what, I am the presumptive nominee, and pull one of those. But it's before the super primaries, that might be a bit of a stretch to ignore that debate. And number 2, what I think he may actually do more likely is say, you know what, this is Gingrich's home state. Let's make a rule where, applauding is not allowed. He definitely has the home field advantage. There's no way anyone can compete against someone in their home state in a debate. And especially if applauding is allowed. And so Romney may say, you know what, I'm not going to go to this debate if you have cheering or something. So be sure, this date is very important. So Romney may throw the dice and say, you know what, I've already made it this far, I've done pretty good, and I've already spent a lot of advertisements. It's only a couple of days away. There's only 3 or 4 more days until the super primaries. Even if Gingrich has a good debate and does really well, the effect is going to be muted because it is in Georgia, and I can justify and say, look, It's Georgia. That's why they're cheering. Of course they're going to cheer. It'd be like me having the debate in Massachusetts or even Utah. You know, what type of, you know, that's what he's going to say. If he does roll a die, it may be a safer roll of the die than you think, because he could say, you know what, yeah, I lost, but look, this thing was rigged from the start. There was allowed for cheering, and this was his home state. What did you expect to happen? So I think the March 1st one is a very pivotal one. I'm not too sure how Romney's going to respond to that. It's a day that he's probably going to basically ignore until, you know, all the primaries are around, because he doesn't want to, you know, he wants to at least win a few more states before that comes up, and then he can say, you know what, let's have a whatever. And so that is what I think is going to happen. We'll see though. So, anything else? Also, the super primaries. Gingrich's, the Super Tuesday, Gingrich has a huge advantage because a lot of them are from the southern states. And so he might actually pull off more delegates during Super Tuesday than Romney, especially with the March 1st debate, and him signing pretty brightly because he's in his home state. I don't know. So that's just my 2 cents of where my prognostication is towards the thing. I think basically what's going to happen is, I think, and also with the states, I think Ron Paul has a chance in February to win a couple states. Maine, and I think he might be able to win Minnesota. They seem to run sort of independent. It's a small state, and he have the people coalesce and gather. And who else? I guess Santorum may win Missouri. Or it could go to Gingrich. I think this is an important thing. I know it's one of the 2 phases, but this one will be important because I think for Missouri, if he doesn't win anything in February, that could be very harmful to Gingrich. And if Santorum wins and Paul wins and he's the only candidate not to win in February, that's going to look really, really bad, even if he's in his home state with the debate. So Gingrich, if he was smart, probably would devote his resources to Missouri because that's his major chance at winning. The same thing with Santorum. I think both of them need to focus on Missouri. It's a sort of southern, not really southern, but enough. It's got more of a conservative slant than Florida does overall, statewide. Alright, that's my prognostication, my predictions of the future.